aside from yesterday, we've had a pretty darn good winter. And so hopefully I don't jinx everybody by thinking, well, we should always get ready for spring and therefore for spring cleaning. Now, some people may not have done a good job of cleaning up over the winter, and so they may encounter something as wretched as rotting meat or decomposing vegetables or even roadkill. And what's significant about those is they're often covered with maggots, because maggots are there to take care of the things that nobody else wants, to get rid of all the garbage. As stomach-churning as maggots may be on decomposing meat, on rotting vegetables, or on roadkill, imagine if they were on your bodies. Well, in 1982, there was a doctor, ironically named Dr. John Church, who encountered an individual who was in a car accident, was thrown out of the car, and was laid in the ditch for 3 days. When rescuers actually found him, he was covered with maggots on his face and on his body. And so this orthopedic surgeon thought, what am I going to do with this guy? Well, first of all, he had to clean up all his wounds. And in order to do so, he had to kind of wipe all the maggots off. But truly, he was astonished at the condition of this man's wounds, because in fact, they were clean. What the maggots had done is actually ate the diseased flesh, kept the healthy flesh, and the excretions from the maggots killed any bacteria that may have infected the wounds, and also gave the new flesh a little bit of a massage and kind of stimulated further growth. And so Dr. Church's work with this man kind of reinvigorated the therapy of maggot treatment on such wounds. So something as stomach-churning as maggots can give physical health and salvation to an individual, or I would also say Lent is the medicine for the salvation of the world. Kind of the central theme of today's readings has been baptism, so the importance of water. Water, as we know, as we use it even today, cleanses us, quenches our thirst, gives life for those who would say water plants, but also, even if one has children and wants to bathe with them, even a couple inches of water will kill. And so all these allusions kind of are important with regards to baptism. Now, ironically, in today's gospel, Jesus is baptized and does the opposite of an encounter with water. He goes into the desert. Now, why would Jesus go into the desert after he's been baptized? Because in the River Jordan, even the Father says to everyone who heard it from the heavens, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." And then we hear today that the Spirit drove him into the desert. Again, why? Well, because Jesus himself, who is divine, had to truly become a human being for the salvation of the whole world. And for him to do so, he had to do it in the context of living the experience of the Jewish people in the Old Testament, especially the experiences of the Exodus, in which the Israelites, after they were liberated from slavery in Egypt, wander in the desert for 40 years until they come to the Promised Land. So Jesus has to also re-encounter those experiences. He is truly to give salvation to the whole human race. He himself has to become a human being. Now, I've never been in the desert for 40 days without any water or even food, or even being surrounded by beasts. But we can imagine, maybe we've heard stories of people who've been lost in the desert and what happens to their bodies. I mean, they're parched with thirst, they're sunburnt, their hair is bleached, probably their lips are blistered, and for Jesus to have this raging hunger, and he's tired, and now he's being tempted by the devil. Now, why would Satan want to tempt him? Well, he only tempts those who have gifts. And for Jesus to be extraordinarily tested, well, he had to be an extraordinary individual. In the sense of Satan is to test him, well, if you're the Son of God, well, this is not how God is going to treat somebody, is to truly become a human being, with all that entails, the glories of being the beloved Son of the Father, but also the brokenness, the humanity, and the humility of being a human being, and even the brokenness that comes with being a human being. So Jesus himself had to experience that, to bring medicine for the salvation of the world. And I think it's often, I think we overlook the fact that Jesus became a human being and experience what it meant to appreciate our brokenness, that we cannot find salvation within ourselves. And this is kind of alluded in the readings during the season of Lent. So for Ash Wednesday, our second reading was taken from the second letter of Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 5, in which St. Paul says that Jesus became sin who knew no sin to make us righteous before the Father. On Palm Sunday, our psalm that day will be from Psalm 22. And a part of that psalm is verse 6, in which the psalmist says, "I am a worm and no man, despised by the people, scorned by others." And on Good Friday, we'll hear the remarkable passage of the suffering servant, Isaiah chapter 53, in whom that he is the one who's, again, scorned by the people, and who bears the transgressions of all the peoples. By his wounds we are healed. Again, reflecting upon the depths in which Jesus wants to restore salvation to us. And so he truly becomes medicine for the salvation of the world. And Lent is also the same. Now, if you encounter people who maybe ask you, "Well, I know you're Catholic, and this is Lent, so what are you giving up?" And you say, "Well, I pray, I fast, and I give alms." So they may give you as perplexed a look as saying that maggots can give physical salvation to people. But I think if we realize how much Lent is a medicine for the salvation of the world, because it reflects the need for spiritual health, physical health, and social health. Prayer, that's spiritual health, is to realize I can't do it alone. I cannot save myself. In the same way that even when we're conceived, it takes two to conceive. When we're born, at least our mother is present. And throughout our lives, we realize we cannot do it alone. And so to realize, well, the first element of our health is to find an encounter with God and to renew that. And so once that's been renewed, then it kind of progresses on to the element of physical health, and in the sense of fasting, and say, well, what are the things in my life that I can really do without, or even more so to become empathetic to the hungers of many people in the world, both physical, emotional, spiritual, or social. And so when we fast, we kind of identify ourselves to the needs of our world, and hopefully it moves us to the social dimension of Lent, acts of charity or almsgiving, is to use the gifts that God has given us, and hopefully fasting reminds us of that, and then to be in turn a gift for others. So Lent is medicine for the salvation of the world. And we realize that Lent makes us more like Jesus. And the more we become like Jesus, the more human we become, in the best sense of the term, that Jesus has given us salvation. And so in 1982, Dr. John Church encountered this man full of maggots. What am I going to do with this guy? But when he wiped out the maggots, he realized, boy, the maggots saved this man's life. And I think if we realize that Lent is also perplexing as maggots are to give physical salvation, but they're truly countercultural. And I think our world more than ever needs to encounter the countercultural medicine that Jesus wants to give to the world. And so this week, let's use our prayer, our fasting, and almsgiving to help bring Jesus' medicine and salvation to the